Hello, I'm Phil Morse. I'm the guy behind Digital DJ Tips, and I'm here today to tell you all about our free Scratch training. This is the first of 3 videos, completely free, where we're going to give you all you need to know to take a flying start if you want to Scratch using your DJ controller. This is the tips and tricks that some people never work out in weeks, months, even years, and just end up giving up. I don't want you to be one of those people. I want you to get the best possible head start. And that's what these videos are about. So, as well as all that, there's going to be some behind the scenes stuff. I thought it would be really nice to show you a little bit of what happens behind the scenes when we're making these videos. We're now the leading provider of online video training for DJs. So we're going to take the opportunity to show you a little bit of that as well. So what's the problem? What's the big problem that we're tackling here? Well, the way I see it is this. It used to be hard to DJ. Now, don't get upset by me saying that, because I love digital DJing. I love the world of DJing today. I love more than any point in my whole long DJing career. But the respect has gone, and it's gone especially for controller DJs. The perception that all we do is stand there and push buttons is huge. Now, in the old days, and I've brought it here, in the old days, this was the currency of any DJ. His 80 12-inch singles in his record box. This got him around the world. And in fact, if you look here, there is one of my flight stickers on this box for some gig somewhere that wasn't my home all those years ago. That was all you needed. But I say it was all you needed to get those 80 tunes, and then to learn how to mix them and to be able to hold a dance floor with them was pretty hard. And you got respect for that, but more to the point, you got booked. You recouped your investment. You got the gigs and the success that you were looking for because you were reasonably rare then. It was reasonably rare to be able to do that. Fast forward to today, the music is everywhere. Anyone with a Beatport account can get most of the music, and the technology is absolutely wonderful. Digital DJing technology today is a transformation from the stuff that we learned on. But the problem is that means that practically anyone who enjoys dancing and who likes music can learn to do a really great DJ set which will hold a dance floor. So today the rules have changed. Today you need something more in order to make those breakthroughs. Not only the personal breakthroughs in your DJing, but the breakthroughs that get you those bookings, get you that success, get you paid, and get you maybe the career, maybe the part-time job, wherever you want it to take you. You're going to need to put something else into it. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. Scratching, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that the only way you can do that is scratching. It's not the way I did it. The way I did it was learning to promote. I promoted my own very, very successful club night for over a decade. And that promotion is what got me in my record box all around the place. I played in Ibiza, I played in Dublin, in U2's nightclub. I had a real, and not only that, but I met all my heroes because I was warming up for them. I was booking these guys and DJing next to them. It worked great for me. But nowadays, the in vogue way of doing it is to be a DJ producer. You learn to produce your own music. And when you're producing music, you're kind of DJing by the back door because people want to book the guy who made that record. And so you're getting DJ gigs on the back of your productions. But another way of doing it, and possibly the most purest way of doing it, is to actually improve your raw skills of DJing. It's the only way out of these 3 that makes you a better DJ. And of all the things you can do to improve your DJing, scratching is the only one that can't be faked, and it's the only one that gets the respect of everyone. Ask your grandmother what a DJ does. She's going to go like this. She's scratching. You know, to a lot of people, it is DJing. There is nothing better if you want to impress and get respect from everyone, from the old vinyl junkie DJ in the corner to the kids with your DJ controller, than to step up there, start DJing, and instead of just playing your music, perform it. Do some scratching. Do something that shows you're the guy in control. It's a world apart from select, sync, play. You know, so it is an awesome way of doing this. Okay, so you want the respect, you want to get paid, you want to get the gigs, you realise that scratching could be a way of doing it. And by the way, it's also great fun. So how do you do it? Well, In these 3 videos, you'll find out how to scratch over any type of music. You'll find out the essential differences between vinyl and controllers when it comes to scratching. We're going to show you how to set up practically any DJ controller with the hardware settings and the software settings and the computer settings so that you can scratch perfectly on it. I said practically any controller, and I really mean it. We're going to show you when to scratch in your tunes. So you're not just scratching because you can, but you're scratching because you should. It's the right time. It's a place where you're going to lift the whole performance by doing some scratching. We're going to show you a real live scratch technique and then lots of places that you can use that technique. Now, it's not actually just videos. There's more to it than that. There's a lot of interaction both with us and with your fellow students on this course. We're going to give you free downloads, and that includes free samples so that you can actually copy the techniques that you hear us do. We're going to give you everything, so you don't have to go anywhere else to find this stuff. They're all going to be free downloads within this course. Now, it's going to last a week. We're going to drop 3 videos for you. We're really excited to do it. And I keep saying we, and that's because I'd like to introduce you to the guy with the hands. This is Steve Canwetto.
These are my hands.
He's the man behind all of our scratch training here on Digital DJ Tips. Ex-Ministry of Soundboy, worked with Sasha and Digweed, Pete Tone, David Guetta, and
many more,
all the big boys. And more to the point, he's a great scratch DJ, but even more to the point, he's a great tutor. He's taught hundreds of people to scratch here at Digital DJ Tips. He's kindly agreed to give up a week of his time to sit in this studio with me and produce these scratch videos. So I think we should.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think we should get started.
Yeah, there's so much to cover. We should crack on.
And let's look at different music styles and how you can scratch over pretty much everything.
Gladly, let's do it.
So this is the classic old hip hop style of DJing.
Yep.
It came out of the block parties in New York, early 80s and stuff, where people were chopping up old funk records and playing from break to break to keep the beat going.
Yeah, and it's from cueing in the headphones those breaks where Grand Wizard Theodore first heard the scratch sound and thought, that'd be quite cool to share with people.
And left the fader up instead of down, so exactly. Kind of scratching was born.
Yeah.
And that's where scratching came from, and it still sounds great today. But I think the thing that a lot of people think is, especially a lot of new DJs, is they think that that's where scratching stayed. You know, it kind of like, it developed into this turntablism thing where there were big competitions of DMC and stuff, and there were people breakdancing on the decks, and but it was a gawping scene. People stood there and watched, and then you come to today where there's big events and dance floors and people dancing all night, and it's kind of like, well, how do I fit this idea of showing off into a proper full DJ set?
Yeah, well, the thing about scratching is it's not always, trying to win the DMC World Championships. It's about having a few little flourishes and tricks in your arsenal, just to kind of like show off a little bit, use scratching to get in between tracks for transitions, to drop in acapellas, to drop in your own kind of DJ jingles and that kind of thing. And we're going to show you lots more kind of examples.
Kind of like icing on the cake rather than...
It's the sparkle.
The cake itself.
The glitter.
So let's have a look at, let's update it. Let's move forward. Let's move away from old school hip hop and let's start playing with some different beats and just see how scratching can fit in over other things.
Yeah, well, we'll pick up the tempos through the dance music tempos, I think.
So we saw a mixture there of intermediate to pretty hard scratching skills. You know, the one before was quite easy. This was a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But what we saw was pure, deep Latin house music with acapellas being mixed in, with layers. And you could use these kind of things to go from track to track, or just to tease a track. Like that vocal, for instance, you could tease for track after track after track before you finally drop it.
Yeah.
So this is again moving away from the hip hop idea of doing a big routine that everyone stands and stares at.
Yeah.
And it's just a way of...
And it's clearly not just pressing buttons either.
No. It's
not just cue points, you know.
It's not, as I always say, select, sync, DJing. It's very manual, and yet it flows. And yet it shows kind of mastery of the decks without showing off to the point where everyone stops dancing and looks at you.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
we said before, that, you know, that can't be faked. And, you know, even the little kind of mistakes that are in it, little timing errors, it's because it's a live performance. It's kind of, you know, this isn't being controlled by the software, this is being controlled by me. So,
and actually the next example I think is a good example of that, because we're going to move up the tempo to something a lot tighter, a lot more machine driven, kind of techy, techno-y, and that kind of music especially, as we're going to see, can benefit from having something organic and something live brought back into it that doesn't have to sound like scratching, you know.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at that.
all right, cool.
1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4.
So again, this has got a very different feel to it. It's kind of dark and claustrophobic, techno-y.
Yeah, used a bit of delay there on the actual scratch sound that you heard, so it just gives it this moody feel.
And one of the technical things you did there as well, which the experienced DJs would spot, is dropped in a new track, not on the downbeat, you know, a beat later, which is, again, it's a techno-y thing. It's something that techno and tech house DJs use to spice their sets up as well.
Yeah, well, snares are a lot more crisp and snappy, and they, you know, in that track, the snare was the perfect thing to be scratching with. So as long as your timing's right, it can sound great.
So the point here, for me anyway, is that what we're listening to there is something which is very regimented. You know, we've got past the earlier beats in this little segment where everything was organic and everything was kind of like nice. This is a lot tighter. This is machine music.
Yeah.
And you're introducing a human element to machine music, which we all know the power of that when a good DJ can just introduce enough of something organic.
Yeah.
To put a whole new energy out there on the dance floor. When people realise that there's a human in control of the machines, you know, it can be a very powerful thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very, I mean, you can't get much further from hip hop than very kind of echoey, paranoid vocals.
And that's just really, really basic examples of things that you can do with house as well. And it's because people have asked, you know, what can I do for scratching house music? There's loads of stuff you can do, but we haven't got a lot of time here, so I'm just doing a couple of little things.
So let's move, now that we've kind of like got a bit moody, let's get really, really moody. And let's go to a genre that this guy's invented, actually. He calls it, you call it big step, don't you?
It's big step.
Yeah, it's kind of big beat and dubstep all mixed up.
Yeah,
I think we better have a
like
listen.
150 BPM around there.
This is a bit weird, guys, but
I'll give it a try.
Let him do it.
The scratching there, the first scratching you heard with the classic hip hop fresh sound is, I was just doing very lazy scratching. It was with what we call with the fader open, so there was no crossfader there. It was just, you know, just one-handed baby scratches, which we're going to teach you pretty soon, and pretty simple stuff, but it just had a nice vibe to it, and you know, that's just what was called for with that kind of tempo.
So to end off our tour of modern electronic dance music, shall we go kind of back again to, not quite as far as hip hop, but back to like the early 90s and get a bit of drum and bass in for all the old drum and bass heads out there and those interested in this kind of style. There's something really good about the way what you're going to show us here, but we'll talk about it after you've done it because it's there's no faster music. There is no apart from Gabba.
There was always a joke that if you saw a drummer that was really muscly, you knew he was a drum and bass drummer.
So
because of the tempo he had.
So we're up there. We're up there at 160, 170, 180 BPM.
170 to 180.
Yeah. So let's have a look.
All right.
So here, the thing that I wanted to point out there was that just because the music is fast, it doesn't mean that the samples or the way you scratch them have to necessarily be fast. You were doing some flash stuff, but at the same time, that sample was playing.
Yeah, most of it was in half time.
So that means that if the drum, you go ahead.
Yeah, so if it was 180 BPM rather than each stroke being 180 beats per minute, it's actually half, so it would have been
90, which is very slow, which is kind of the speed of the hip hop that we started with.
And also that sample, it's just got a perfect kind of phrasing to fit over that particular tempo, and you'll learn a lot more about types of sounds to use and when to use them later on. But that sample just fit perfectly, and it didn't require super fast scratching to make it sound good, even though the track was really fast.
So one question we get asked an awful lot is, what is the difference between scratching on DJ controllers and scratching on old-fashioned vinyl and with record decks? And this question is still alive because of course you could use a digital vinyl system. You could choose to scratch today. You could choose to go out and buy gear today that lets you use vinyl to scratch on. And it's a valid question, because if you want to learn to scratch from scratch, see what I did there, and you want to do it properly, you're going to ask yourself, can I do it properly on this, or am I wasting my time? It's a smart question to ask. So let's look at some of the differences, and let's rule out a really obvious one that you might think would be an issue, which is that this old record deck has got what we call a tone arm with a needle on the end of it, and it needed that because without that you can't get the music off the record. That's how the music came off the record. Caused all kinds of problems.
Yeah, that needle's got to stay in the groove, and
what may.
When you've got bass rumbling in the club and you've got drunk people coming up trying to make requests, it's very easy.
And dust in the needle.
Yeah, very easy that can jump. And with scratching as well, it's the biggest kind of enemy of the scratcher was the jumping needle.
So you don't need a needle, and even DVS systems, even the modern digital systems, have a cheat button that stops that skipping if it happens to jump, actually affecting your music. So that's history. Don't worry about that. So the next thing is the platter. And the platter is the big thing that spins around. It's called a jog wheel on the newer controllers and on the stuff we're talking about. Now the platter is something which feels very, very different on there to how it feels on here. And because it's moving, that one moves around. Steve's holding it still now, but underneath it's still going around, and that's because he's got a piece of felt underneath it called a slip mat.
To sort of explain how it feels is I've got my fingers gripping on the record, but it's pulling away from me. I can feel it trying to pull away from me because the platter's spinning underneath.
And that is the feel of scratching on. And this motor, by the way, in here is it's what's called high torque. It's a very, very powerful motor, and it's more stable for mixing. This thing here is the Numark NS72. It's also the heaviest and the least practical. And the reason for that is they've actually built in spinning platters. Take it away, Steve. There you go. They actually go round. They're exactly the same as on a Technics turntable, even down to the quality and the size and weight and cost of the motor in there. Every other digital controller ever has ditched the idea of having something actually physically spinning around with a motor. Because if you think about it, that motor was only there so the needle was moving and bringing the music off. And take away that need, it doesn't have to go around anymore. And actually, over here I have an example of, this is a Pioneer CDJ player. Now these are very, very standard things. These are in all DJ booths all over the world. They have been standard for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
These do not spin around. You put a CD in there, you press play, that is not going anywhere. It stays still. And
And all of the things that DJs have needed to do, whether it be scratching or cueing or nudging, have all been possible with these without needing vinyl.
And some of the biggest DJs in the world have been scratching on these for half of their lifetime.
Yeah.
And these are fixed. These do not have motors in. So do not think that because DJ controllers don't have motors underneath their little jog wheels that you can't scratch on it. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
No.
Now, what is true is that they feel different. There's a different feel to it, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it feels like it's pulling underneath you when you're using vinyl. And when you move over to jog wheels that are fixed, that's something that if you've come from the vinyl world, is going to feel a little bit different to you. But the principles of the music moving away from you when you let it go are exactly the same. We'll explain that.
And that does bring us nicely onto the next thing, actually. Can you just, would you, let's look at this record here. Just show that line on it. Just point to the line.
Yeah, so this line here, this yellow line, is to help me, it's pointing at the needle, and it's actually pointing at the needle right at the point of a scratch sound which I want to use.
And that's actually because Steve's put it there, because that was his choice.
Okay, so that's the sound, this little word up sound.
Word up.
Now I know that as long as I bring that mark back to the pointing at the needle,
Word up.
I'm going to be in exactly that place, as long as it doesn't jump.
Of course.
Now, I can show you can actually see the needle there moving around a little bit in the groove, and if I do a fast bit of scratching, I'm sure it won't be difficult to make it jump. There you go, it jumped out of the groove.
But nonetheless, that piece of tape on the record there is essential for scratch DJs because it shows them the beginning of their sound. And so obviously when you're scratching, you use the same sound over and over again. You need to get back to the beginning, and you're using it as a visual cue marker. Now, my language there would probably help you to understand how it's done digitally. But before we move on to that, I want to show you little tricks that some digital DJ controllers have used to help you kind of like double guess what happened there. And that's the light in the middle of on this one here, the VCI 380 by Vestax. When you press play, the light goes round. And this is like the deck going round, even though the jog wheel isn't moving, this is like the deck going round. And you can hold it. So it's acting, it's giving you the information that you would have had on a moving deck. And in fact, this controller here, if you like that idea, if you think, okay, I'm going to ditch the motor idea, but I'd quite like to have that moving thing so that I've got that intuitive visual thing going on. This one, the Mixtrack Quad, is a couple of $100. It's a very cheap controller. It's got a moving light. When it's plugged in and working, there's a light here that moves around and does what I just showed you on the much more expensive Vestax.
And I'll scratch with this and it works brilliantly. That visual cue is bang on every time, in the same way that the sticker on the vinyl or looking at the waveform, it would always be back to that point.
But some of the very best DJ controllers in the world, including the Traktor Control S4, they don't bother with any of that. There's no lights, there's no visual cues, there's nothing. And the reason is that digital DJs have an extremely simple way of knowing where they are on the tune. And that is the waveforms. The waveforms on your screen are they're just the straight equivalent of having a marker on something round. You can put markers into your track. And you can jump to the markers, you can see where the markers are when you're manipulating the jog wheel.
You can zoom in as well, just to get you right to the start. You can change the view of it depending on your screen.
So just as with so many things in digital DJing, it has improved on what was there before. It has improved on the way it used to be done, and you do not need to have those markers, whether they're lights or whether they're the old-fashioned way. You don't need it if you've got waveforms that you can look at. And actually, in Steve's more advanced training, he teaches how that you end up not needing it at all because of various techniques that we haven't, we'd need 10 more minutes. But the point is, digital DJing does not trip you up if you haven't got a way of seeing on the actual spinny thing itself where your fingers are and where you've been. So the final thing, which is again clear from looking at all this equipment we have here, the final thing that's different from the old-fashioned record decks, which everyone scratched on for 20 years, to everything else here is the size of the platter, size of the jog wheel. And it's a question we get asked an awful lot, can you scratch? Is it better to have big platters?
Well, the bigger platters do give you more control. Platters like on the Reloop controllers, for example, do give you a bit more control, but I use the S4, which is probably among the smallest, and also the Denon MC2000 is also another controller which is brilliant for scratching on, but it's got really, really small jog wheels. So it's down to the technique. If you've got the technique and you can just make the adjustments for size, then there's no reason that small jog wheels should be able to hold you back. In fact, I'm going to preempt you bringing this in because I know you want to bring this in. This is the Behringer CMD Micro controller with, you know, tiny micro jog wheels.
They are pretty tiny.
And I did a video of this to see whether this was any good at scratching, and it's pretty good.
In fact, he did it in front of 200 people at the BPM show. And I think he just did it to show off, really, in a seminar that we did. But
it was a bit of showing off. But, you know, this proves beyond doubt that actually the size of the jog wheels don't matter. Having jog wheels and having, you know, a decent setup of your equipment, which we're going to come on to teach you all about, as long as you've got that sorted, then you should be able to scratch even on something as small as this, and actually we're going to show you.
I think we need to see a bit of proof of that, Steve. It's quite a bold statement. Let's have a look at you.
All right, I'll give it a go.
So that's just about it for today, folks. We've had a lot of fun here. I hope you've enjoyed it too. In the next video, we're gonna talk about the biggest problem that we hear, which is getting your gear set up for scratching. Digital gear is great, but it's so complicated and there's so many combinations of hardware and software and computers and so on, so many little things that you could trip up on. We wanna get you past that to the point where the stuff in front of you is working just fine. We're gonna have a whole video just about setting your gear up. So that's the next video. And in the one after that, that's when you're gonna be putting all of this to use. We're going to be teaching you some real scratching techniques with some real music using the sounds that we're going to give you next time. So at that point, you'll be off and you'll be running. Can't wait to bring you that stuff. Just want to end today by saying that below this video, there's a chance for you to give us your feedback. And I'd particularly like to hear from if you've tried to scratch on your DJ controller in the past, how it went for you. And I'd like to know about the particular controller you have. How's it gone with the particular gear you've got? Have you changed your gear? What was the difference between them? We'd be really interested to know your experiences in those areas. So please do use the feedback below, and I can't wait to see you on video number 2.